Well, let me actually count that. It was 20.
Rampage came out in 2018. So you probably worked on it in 2017, right?
Yes. I forget how old I am sometimes, so it's all blurring.
Same with Haruka last
How old are you now? Minus
I'm
6.
33.
Minus 6.
That's
27.
math. I'm in art.
27.
27, yeah.
27.
That's math. I'm in art.
I'm in art.
I'm in art. This is not just a sipping and clipping podcast for this episode. We are also nipping as well.
This is a sip and nip, a sip, clip, and nip, a sip, nip, clip.
and nip. Yeah.
This is a questionable name.
All right. What other?
Sip and nip podcast, not a Botox podcast.
Not.
Thank you.
I'm having a little nip.
You're having a little nip. Esto is nipping.
I'm nipping.
On
An almond
what
croissant?
is that? A croissant?
Chocolate almond croissant
Chocolate
from
almond croissant.
Lou, the French on the block. My sip is also Lou French on the block.
Wow.
But it's a little French bakery on Riverside in Toluca Lake. And it's been my new favorite haunt. And they're only open Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so all week, I dream about these croissants.
Wow.
So
For this morning, Esto is eating a croissant, but I had gotten Hank's bagels for everyone.
Sorry.
Which is fine that she decided to have a croissant, but Hank's Bagels does this thing where they're called scooped bagels.
Oh, we did talk about this.
And this is Esto
Yeah, I did
actually
get
told me.
sacrilegious.
I did get a text from Lian this morning that I was so deeply confused by.
I didn't
Because
understand
the
it. And then it's like,
text-
but we had
The text was like,
We had
found
the
out
talk.
what happens to the scooped dough. And I was like, is that a euphemism? I am so confused by what that means.
So Esto actually told me about these scooped bagels because I didn't know that they did this. Do you want to explain exactly what it is?
So we live in sunny Los Angeles where people become a little fixated on
Calorie count.
calorie counts. And this is not a thing I think that happens anywhere else in the world, but in LA, you can order a bagel without the inside of the bagel. And it's called getting a scooped bagel where they take a spoon and they just go, and they scoop out the guts. Yeah. So you're just eating schmear and crust. Like I don't like the Jew in me is like withering.
Well, the mystery that Esther and I were talking about was what do they do with the
guts.
The scooped dough.
The scooped dough of the already baked bagel. And so this morning when I went to go get Hank's, I asked them and they said, well, we offer if you want it.
No.
Or we just get rid of it. And I was like, all that dough? And she was like, yeah. And I almost wanted to be like, can I have it?
But you didn't.
Bag for me to
I did not.
I want the scoops.
Can I have the scooped bagel, but just the scoops?
That's so funny.
That's so funny.
Well, welcome to welcome to Sips and Clips. My name is Lian McFalls.
My name is Michael Schusterman.
Today we've got a very special guest and friend of ours.
Esther Sokolow.
Yes, Esther is an editor in the industry, but she started as a... Did you start as a PA?
I did.
Way back in the day. But also, Esther is the first woman that we have on this podcast. Not that we intentionally...
Breaking our glass ceiling.
Yeah.
The Sips and Clips glass ceiling.
Not that we have intentionally tried to just get males, but... it just so happens that the way the schedule's been working, Esther was able to come in today as opposed to like 3 months ago. We're very glad to have her here. And why don't we...
Esther is like, I think you were like, when Lian and I started about doing this podcast, you were probably like OG guest number one on our list of like people we were like, who do we want on this podcast? I think like number one was like, we got to get Esther. Like that's like,
really
it's like number one.
We knew you were
And I feel
busy,
like
so
you've
we'll
been
wait,
referenced in this podcast.
It makes me feel really good to know how many people have been in my sphere of work that I've been able to bring up and see doing amazing things. So that's really touching to hear that you're bringing guests on who are doing really well in their careers that I've had a chance to touch. So
why don't we talk about what we're sipping on? So, okay, go ahead, Michael. You can go first.
I don't need to go first.
You can go first.
I'm not sipping on
Michael
coffee.
started to reach for his
No
drink.
almond?
Well, I realized because it's empty. No almond.
I
No
actually
almonds.
feel
I had almond this
deeply
morning.
upset right now because I had a whole almond riff I was going to go off on.
I want you
but
to know. I had an almond coffee this morning.
Almond or almond milk?
This is the first
Almond
almond milk. This is the
Because
first
it's not
time.
milk.
All right, here we go.
the
Let's get
listeners.
into it. Michael.
Fury in my veins.
Why? There's something coming out of your ears.
It's
I think
smoke.
I just-
Hold on.
You look like a tomato right now.
All I'm
Look
saying.
like the anger emotion from Inside Out.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is there are some of us that were not born with the capacity to digest lactose in their stomach. And so we are bound by the limits of what Mother Nature's nut consortium can pass on to us.
I understand. And as somebody who also suffers from autoimmune diseases, I just drink it.
I'm not built like you, Esther. My
I just
tummy
go in and
hurts.
get infusions every 2
My-
months. I suffer through with the IVs.
So what are you actually drinking on?
Right
Or
now,
we're sipping on?
Lian was kind enough to gift me a orange Gatorade, a zero sugar orange Gatorade that I've
Zero
actually
sugar.
now finished, which is kind of cringe to finish it before we actually get in the middle of it. But
Well, we were hanging out.
we were vibing,
Okay. We're vibing. Yeah.
We were sipping, pre-clipping.
Yes.
Pre-clipping.
Pre-clipping. So what are you sipping on today?
I am drinking an iced latte from Leo the French on the Block. And it's actually incredibly rare that I drink an iced latte. In my mind, I believe that it's only caffeinated if it's hot.
Interesting.
But
That's an
breaking the
interesting
illusion
take.
of the podcast. Today it's 100 degrees outside. So
you know what's also interesting? It's like technically not a latte either, because iced lattes, because they just pour the milk in. You need to steam it for it to
Yep.
technically be a latte.
Yep.
So it ends up really just being espresso and milk as opposed to the
espresso with
steam.
milk. But there is something like it has to be so hot outside for me to agree to do an ice
I
drink.
also
Like
agree with you.
I think it's like how my body breaks down caffeine if it's a hot liquid or a cold liquid.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
this is not to wake me up. It's just to sip.
Just to sip. I am also going off of the fact that it is 100 and some degrees out, and I am just drinking some nice ice water because you gotta stay hydrated. Stay hydrated out there, people.
Hydrate
when
or
it's
dihydrate.
hot.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Hydrate or dihydrate.
Love it. Esther, why don't you tell us how you got started in the industry and what got you interested in becoming involved in this little journey?
Nobody in my family is really connected to film. My dad is a huge bibliophile and like a lover of classic cinema, theater, Shakespeare, etc.
So you grew up in Atlanta.
I grew up in Atlanta. And so obviously now Atlanta is this huge film hub. But when I was growing up, it was MTV and Tyler Perry Studios. That was kind of it. But I got really into, like, I watched a lot of classic Hollywood, a lot of, Marx Brothers, Charlie Chaplin, a lot of Hitchcock.
Why? Why did you watch this?
Those were the films my dad wanted to show me.
Okay.
And like I saw mostly black and white before I even saw color as a kid.
I love
I don't know.
that,
That was
actually.
super
That's great.
charming for
I
me.
really
So you were
love
getting
that.
like your dad was giving you like a film education. He was being like,
Completely.
you need to understand why Charlie Chaplin's important. Like,
Absolutely.
This is what this changed about comedy and storytelling. and
Well,
stuff
it was
like
just
that.
like comedy is eternal. The right for my dad. Like there is some comedy that has a shelf life.
Yeah.
But the slapstick, the Marx Brothers comedy where they're all playing off of each other and each have their own shtick, that is eternal. And I think for my dad, it was really important to share the things that he had watched as a kid and feel like those, the things that brought him joy were still relevant.
And I just wanted to share it with you as well,
Completely,
in general. Yeah.
And then because my dad was a bibliophile, when Lord of the Rings was being made into a movie, it was really important for him that I read the book. I'm in 5th grade at the time. And we had
You read the book in 5th grade?
read the book in 5th grade.
So your dad's a bibliophile, making you read Lord of the Rings, and then you watch the film.
And then
Yeah.
he pulled me out of school to watch the films.
Really?
And
That's amazing.
I mean, I had seen the
So your
first,
dad's really instilling into you a sense of storytelling as being a really important
100%.
character trait as being an adult.
And that storytelling has many art forms.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to skip nap time in preschool to draw because I was a fairly good kid and quiet and kept to myself. Like they would just let me. So I always had this great pride in like trying different art forms. And when I saw Lord of the Rings, having grown up on classic cinema, I went, oh wow, it's evolved. it's evolved in a pretty big way because I wasn't seeing the intervals.
Did you go from watching all those classic cinemas straight to Lord of the Rings? Or
I
did
mean,
you
there were
kinda
some,
watch a
like,
few?
I was a child. I was doing some Disney movies and whatnot,
Yeah.
but it's kind of straight,
You
straight
weren't
to Lord of the
seeing,
Rings.
I mean, Lord of
You
the
weren't seeing
Rings is
like
also
the other
pretty-
big blockbusters that were coming out at the time.
No.
Harry Potter hadn't even come out until
Harry Potter, I think, was
2002.
2001.
2001, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
But it was all happening in this same trajectory
Yeah,
of like
it was all sort of the
Major
same.
IP films like that hadn't really been done, I
Yeah.
guess. Is,
Yeah.
is
and
the
also
point.
hadn't been done with that degree of love and care.
Yeah, or that budget.
And that budget, and also with what felt like a real respect towards the craftsmanship, because the DVD box sets for Lord of the Rings were so magnificent.
Yep.
And so for me as a kid watching those, it's like there's this book that my dad loves and that now I love that's been turned into this magnificent movie. And also look at how many people are lovingly making this. Like I could make something like this and
Yeah.
have this kind of impact on the next child. I thought I was going to be a teacher. Like I always wanted to do something that like gave back in some capacity. So I don't know, maybe it was that, like wanting to work on something that had touched me so profoundly.
So, 2 questions. When did you remember being like, I want to be a filmmaker?
Yeah.
And then after that, when did you decide I want to specifically be an editor?
So I was really into theater and I was going to summer camp for the first time. In the summer camp
What year is this?
oh gosh, I guess this must be 5th grade in conjunction with, for me, that would have been the 3rd Lord of the Rings coming out.
So 2002.
2002. So I was going to summer camp, and the way that camp worked was you had to sign up for an elective. And if the elective was full, then you got your second choice. So my first choice was theater, and I didn't get in. It was too full, and they assigned me to the filming class, which I was annoyed about. Like I remember sitting around the circle and everyone saying like why they chose the elective as the first, icebreaker, and saying like, oh, I wanted to take theater. And then we filmed like a Survivor-esque video of us competing in challenges around the camp. And it was really, really fun. And then only one other person and myself agreed to edit it. And so I sat back with him. And
Did you know what editing was?
I had no idea what editing was. I knew what directing was. I knew what acting was. I knew what writing was. Editing was kind of a black box mystery to me. And I had a lot of fun. I had more fun fixing all the footage than I did running around making it.
Filming it.
Like it just felt like this is the right part of the process. This is all clicking.
And do you remember what you edited on?
Oh, it had to have been one of the
iMovie?
final cuts.
A final
Final
cut?
cut?
Yeah, for sure.
That's crazy.
And so I got really fascinated in that. And then the next year, my sister was doing an acting program that summer, and it was already filled up. And so they said, well, we don't have room for you to be in the camp, but you could come and film it and do like a summer documentary.
Oh, that's
of the
cool.
camp.
Yeah.
I came back and I filmed the summer camp for my sister at theater camp and cut a documentary together for them. And the final show, they did the final performance for all the family and whatnot. They played my documentary beforehand.
That's awesome.
It was really cool. It was the first time I ever properly had something play in front of an audience.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting.
So then you were filming your sister's camp. It showed on display for everybody. And then what happened after that?
You know when you're in middle school and you have to take the like SATs as like practice?
Yeah.
So I did the SATs, and if you got a certain percentage, I guess you got invited to attend for money these like Duke tip programs around the country. So Duke would run these, if you're really interested in math, you could do a, MIT two-week program or this or that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Like in the summer, but you would be at that university, and it was, staying in the dorms and this specialized interest thing. And
And this was while you were in This is while you were in middle school?
No, this is high school now.
Oh, high
This
school.
is all
Okay.
dependent on your PSAT score?
Yes.
Wow. And you, going into high school, knew that you wanted to go to film school. You knew you wanted to
At
be a
this
filmmaker.
point, the bug had been scratched for sure.
all right.
Yeah. So Duke Tip had a program at Chapman University for 2 weeks where you could learn to make a short film. It was the greatest program of my life. It was so fantastic. We were using Avid at that point. I was so enamored with it and just couldn't imagine doing anything else. And then when the summer ended, I asked my parents if we could buy Avid, which of course we could not. But I didn't want to lose the keyboard memory.
The skills you had learned.
So I drew them on stickers and put them on my keyboard.
Did you
That's
really?
amazing.
Well, and it also at that age made me feel like I had a direction.
Sure.
And that I was
Right.
using my time wisely leading up to this foray into, So I thought NYU was the dream, and I got waitlisted and then didn't get enough financial aid. And I got a really good package from Chapman. And then I got in and it made sense.
So then after you go to college and now you found your calling as an editor, did you, because I know Chapman is out here, right? It's in Orange
Chapman's
County.
in Orange County.
Did you go back to Atlanta or did you just kind of
Yes.
move straight up? Like what was the
so
move
that's actually so you asked earlier about when I started PAing and stuff, and because Atlanta had lots of work, I would come home. So Chapman would do a 4-1-4 semester. So they would do 4 months of fall semester, 1 month of interterm that was elective. So you could come and take one class in 1 month or have 6 weeks of break.
Okay.
Yep.
And then come back for a 4-month semester and then summer.
So I'm assuming interterm you went back to Atlanta and then
Oh, and I
were,
PA'd on
you
TV
PA'd.
shows. I used that time to
Awesome.
Yeah, I
I've
was
never heard of
cranking up
anybody doing
credits.
that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What type of TV shows?
I did MTV's Teen Wolf. MTV's My Super Psycho Sweet 16 Part 3. So I would...
that as a post-PA.
I was a
as
set
production
PA. And I
Set PA.
remember my key PA, he pointed out the assistant editor on Teen Wolf. And he was like, you should go talk to her. And I was too afraid. I couldn't do it. She was so intimidating. Just by knowing that she was in the field that I wanted one day. I was like, but I'm 5'1" and have worked on my confidence since sophomore year of college. But at that point, it was really scary to see somebody doing the job that I wanted to learn, but feel like, but I'm not ready yet. Like I got one shot and I don't want to blow it and not have this opportunity to talk to them and I'm not ready yet.
How are you getting these PA gigs?
Oh, best thing in the world. So in Atlanta, I don't know if they still have this, but when I was growing up, there was the Georgia Film Commission website, and every production that would come to Atlanta would post the contact for crewing on the website.
Wow.
And this was pre-Black Swan lawsuit, and I would just cold email and offer to work for free. And so I did.
That's crazy.
That is.
I can't even imagine how helpful an asset that would be if I was back in film school or anything
It was
like that.
the
Oh my
most
God.
incredible thing. Well, it just gave me such a
Confidence.
framework.
Yeah.
But just knowing the hierarchy, the etiquette, reading the room, the stress of, it was January in Atlanta, and I know Atlanta's the South, but it gets cold. We're filming a werewolf show that films a lot at night. Yeah. So it was quite chilly, and I was doing night shoots, but it was amazing. And it was really cool to feel forward movement. And Atlanta was a very welcoming community. And so I met Brahim on Super Psycho, and then he brought me on to Teen Wolf, and then people from Teen Wolf brought me on to, I did the auditions for Footloose as a PA, The Voice, at the very beginning of The Voice when it was coming out to Atlanta for auditions, but mostly it was Teen Wolf that I just worked, that was the big brunt of day in, day out.
So then after you've now graduated Chapman, and then you did say that you went back to Atlanta after you graduated.
I just went back for 1 month and then knew that I was moving out.
Then you committed to LA.
I was very committed to LA. So I moved out, I think, in June. and I got a job DITing. Well, I guess I should back up just a little bit. My final year at Chapman, I had finished all my credits in the fall semester. So even though I graduated in May, my last semester was mostly just finishing my thesis and theses and internships. And I had an internship at a trailer company called Trailer Park. And I was really, really hoping that I could get a job there.
We had a guest on, Zachary Harrison, who was an assistant editor at Trailer Park for 6 years, something like that.
That's amazing. Yeah. It was a really great place to learn. And I'm very close in the trailer world, and I have so much respect for everyone working in those fields. Trailer Park, I had a great internship. I was working in their behind the scenes DVD specials making of EPK department.
Stuff, yeah.
And that was super eye-opening.
That stuff qualifies for union days.
It does indeed. And I was really hoping I could get a job in that. But all those positions were filled. I did some logging days, but it wasn't anything that was going to count. So I was DITing on an indie film. And one of my professors from Chapman called me the day that I was moving all my stuff out of storage from Orange to the Valley. And he said, there's a post-PA job on Amazing Spider-Man 2. Are you interested in applying?
Which professor is this?
This was Scott Arundel.
This is Scott Arundel? Shout out to Scott Arundel.
Scott out. Shout out
to Scotty.
So Scott called me, and so I sent my resume to him. It turns out that it was a referral from Barbara Doyle, who's also a Chapman. She was a dean.
Dean of students was, I think so.
So when I was at Chapman, Barbara Doyle was dean of students, and then she went to...
She was still there when I was there.
She left for a period and then came back. Barbara Doyle used to teach at AFI, and the producer on Amazing Spider-Man 2 was one of her students. And so when they were finishing production in New York, she reached out to her former professor and said, do you have any fresh graduates who have a
hankering for post,
exactly, who would be a good fit for this? So I applied, and then I waited and I waited and I waited, and I just had it in my gut of like, this is going to happen for me. Like, I feel it.
And this was going to be, was this for a post-PA gig?
Post-PA gig.
And they were in LA, right?
They were at the time that I sent in my resume, they were finishing up in New York. So I think they were fielding resumes.
But they were moving
but they were going to be moving back to LA.
Okay, yeah.
At the Sony offices. It was so interesting. I was listening to your episode with Grant, and there's so many parallels to my experience because I had applied and then nothing. And then on a Monday, I got a call asking if I could come in for an interview. I came in to interview on Tuesday. Tuesday afternoon, they offered me the job, and I started Wednesday morning. And then I was working for the next 10 months on that job. So it was really one of those things where when that call came, I had to be ready. And it was an amazing boot camp for me. But that's not my favorite way to hire people because it feels very closed door. And I think privilege begets privilege. And I was in a very privileged place in my life financially to
quit whatever you were doing.
Yeah. And to like be biding my time on the right jobs. And when I got to a place in my career where I was interviewing those positions.
You're thinking back to when you were a PA and what it was like.
Exactly.
You're learning the mistakes, not to call anything a mistake, but you're learning the things that happened to you that you thought could have been done better.
Well, it's also, I feel like my career is in a really, really great place. And I'm so appreciative of how my life has panned out, but I'm also acutely aware of the fact that my privilege has yielded a lot of opportunities for me. And and it bothers me that there are people who are not in a place financially to come to Los Angeles until they have a job, and that our industry doesn't hire in that way. And I feel like that is an aspect that, especially as the industry has shifted, people know their jobs much further out than they used to. And I don't quite understand why some jobs get hired at the last minute.
I do want to ask, because you said that you sent your resume in, was that right? And then you were biding your time.
Yeah.
How long about
It was a month.
A month.
Yeah.
So what were you doing in that month?
That was when I was DITing on that indie film.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you were in LA though?
I was in LA
right?
already. Yeah.
So you were in LA, and then did you have to then leave?
I did,
Or
and
it finish?
I brought a replacement, and it was one of those like I'm no longer available on Monday for this job. You know? But I passed along the opportunity to somebody from Chapman, and they did an amazing job, and I think they were better in that job than I was. It was nice. I feel like every time you have to leave a job, you should replace yourself with somebody better than you with that job. Yeah.
I do want to ask, because I think this is something you brought up to me, and this was actually, you kind of alluded to earlier, but one of the first conversations you and I had was the idea of there being artistry in blockbuster films, that like there is an artistry in creating fun. I think was like one of the original conversations that you and I had. And I've thought about that conversation a lot over the last few years. And I also remember, when we chatted about, I think a million years ago, you were like, well, what kind of films do you want to work on? Which is a very standard question people ask. I don't remember what answer I gave at the time, but I remember your answer being like the things that you love these big blockbuster things, and you love doing that. And when you're a PA, you don't really get to pick where you start as a PA. You don't get to pick your starting line normally, but you had Amazing Spider-Man 2 come knocking at your door. At that time, were you thinking about, I want to work on blockbuster stuff and this is my opportunity to get in the foot in the door here? Yeah. Or was it really working on Spider-Man 2 that cemented that this was the world you wanted to be in, not horror or comedy or anything like that?
I think it's twofold. I think I really want to work. I love the collaboration of visual effects and filmmaking. And I find the ways that stories can be told in the merging of those art forms is really fascinating to me. Spider-Man 2 was, oh gosh, that's such an interesting question to think through. Let me gather my thoughts.
Well, only that's because I know your story a little bit.
Yeah.
And I know that after Spider-Man 2, you went and worked at The Mill, right?
No. So after Amazing Spider-Man 2, I got hired as the internal visual effects editor at Method Studios, the VFX company.
Method, yes.
Yeah. So, and that was one of those, I knew about getting your days into the union. I knew that the easiest route to go was reality television, or not the easy, but the tried and true method.
The classic.
The classic route that I would tell everyone to go to is through reality TV. And I was applying to all of those places and not hearing anything.
Yep.
And then somebody on one of the Chapman Facebook portals posted that she's the VFX editor at Method Studios and she's moving to another sector of the company and looking to replace herself. And it's one of those things, and I think that this is really important for anyone listening. I have a PDF of my resume on my phone at all times.
Yeah.
You never know when a job is going to come up and when you need to be ready to go. I understand wanting to take time and saying, like, give me till the evening, I'll send it out. But it will always make a better impression if somebody asks you to apply for a job and you send it 5 minutes later.
I keep it in iBooks so I can send it through iMessage.
Nice.
That happens sometimes.
100%.
They're like, hey, you have your resume on hand? And you're like, bam, here it is
Done.
in the text thread. Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
I was at the beach with my mom when I saw that post and it was sent 5 minutes later from my phone.
Yep.
Like that is proofread, ready to go. Hard PDF, never send it as a doc, like PDF file, ready to go, and have versions that are tailor-made for like
different things
based on like you shouldn't have to take time later on. You should be ready for the job.
I'm sorry, I know we're bouncing around, but you are still peeing on Amazing Spider-Man when you applied to this job, or that had ended?
That had ended. So I was on Amazing Spider-Man I think I started in July 2013, and then I wrapped March 2014.
Okay.
And then I started at Method May of 2014. And then when I was at Method, when I started in May, the first title I started on was Guardians of the Galaxy.
Okay.
And then that came out that summer, and then I started on San Andreas.
Cool. So then you were VFX editor for Guardians and then San Andreas.
I was the visual effects editor, vendor side for Guardians of the Galaxy and then San Andreas.
Did you say it's how you got your days?
Yes. Yes. So because I was visual effects editor, my classification for the roster was considered editor. So I had to do 175 days to qualify for the union. And then I had to pay.
Oh, the crazy fee.
I had to pay the crazy fee.
Oh.
Yep. And then I downgraded my first job was as an apprentice editor. And so I downgraded my quarterly dues to apprentice.
They let you do that?
100%.
Wow.
Yeah. Because
I didn't know that either.
you're only joining
As an editor.
as a classification, and then what you're working on, because you can downgrade your dues. Like
I
if
didn't know
you're
you
an
could
editor
downgrade your
and then you
dues.
downgrade, you're working as an assistant editor, like, you know, there are people who jump. You should be able to downgrade your dues.
So then after you worked on these shows, is that when you were you then an assistant or did you PA again?
So I had been dreaming about the ACE internship program
Okay, yep.
throughout college. I was very, very interested in applying for the internship. And it was, you know, I'm definitely one of those people who is very big on the 5-year plan, the 10-year plan, like we're going to do this and then this is going to happen. But then I got Spider-Man, and that job was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Like it's kind of tricky because once you get Spider-Man, you're kind of not eligible for that internship anymore.
Well, you are eligible.
But I meant like the
yeah.
person they're going to pick is likely not going to be the person who is a PA on a major feature already.
Yes.
Generally.
Yes. Yes.
That's what I mean.
So I didn't obviously apply that first year out of school.
Yeah.
And then I got Method, and I'm cranking through my days.
Yeah.
But the plan is apply for the internship.
Yep.
So I did, and I got selected as a finalist.
Okay.
So that meant, and the way that the internship works, you find out if you're one of 10 finalists, and then you have several months of knowing you're a finalist, and then you have your interview. But then the interview happens, and that the day of the interview, you found out if you
gets it?
get it or don't get it. And then next week, the program starts, and it's a full-time fellowship.
Okay.
So I was working at Method, but I knew that this was not my career path. I was using the job for the opportunity, the credits, the experience, the days. And I was very clear with them from the beginning. They kept offering me a staff position, and I kept the freelance status because I wanted them to be in sync with my hopes and dreams, and I didn't want to burn a bridge with them. I wanted to kind of be an open book of wanting them to wish me well as I evolved my career.
Being like, I'll work with you, but
Yeah.
I'm not interested in a staff position, but I would
Yes.
love to still work with you and
Completely.
with anything that you need help with.
That's exactly right. And it's, you know, it's such looking back, it worked for me. I don't know if it would work for everyone.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, it's lovely you're so honest, but I don't know that I would recommend to somebody in your position that same bit of advice.
Yep. I'm a very loyal person, and I was very uncomfortable with accepting a staff position knowing that I saw the exit ramp.
Yeah.
And that felt dishonest to me. But then when I got selected as a finalist for the internship program, I went to them and I said, I've been selected for this. I explained, and I wanted them to be on board with following my career and seeing it flourish. And so there was somebody else at the company in the data IO department who was really interested in moving to VFX editorial. And so even though I didn't know if I would get the internship, I started training my replacement. And then when I was not selected as an intern, but I was selected as an honorary intern. So I had a truncated, I got to shadow.
3 months, right?
No, 1 week.
Oh, it was 1 week.
Yeah. No, so it was like the internship is an extended 6-week program. Every week you're shadowing a different cutting room.
Yeah.
But oftentimes there are more cutting rooms that are willing to host an intern than makes sense logistically with placing people.
I see.
So they have extra rooms, and they want to make sure that like it's quite a process to get an intern cleared to shadow your cutting room. And so ACE wants to make sure that they're honoring that effort and also placing somebody who could really benefit from that shadowing opportunity. So there are usually honorary interns who get placed for, a week at, a cutting room of sorts. But I had my resume passed for an apprentice editor job at the same window, at the same time that this was all happening. And I mean, that's what I'd been like dreaming of.
Right, yeah.
So my resume got passed for this apprentice editor job. And I interviewed, I got offered the job. It was going to start in New Mexico in like 3 weeks. And they were going to send me on location and everything. Went to the roster. I was 4 days short. So I canceled my internship. The thing that I had wanted so badly, I had to go to Lori and say, I can't shadow. I need to work the 4 days.
Were you already like in the internship for a little bit, or was it like you had gotten?
I did Monday, and then I had to not show up the rest of the week.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
You needed those 4 days.
I needed those days.
So did you go back to being a VFX editor for 4 days?
Yeah. I needed the days. I needed the paycheck.
Awesome that they were willing to be able to take you.
It was
for
so
4 days.
surreal. And the post producer, the film was Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Yeah.
And the post supervisor, post producer, Jeffrey Harlacher, I, talked to him at length. He even pushed my start date by a week so that because I was like,
because you have to send in the paperwork. And
it was like
days, you gotta
so
send it in.
touch and go.
Wow.
And then my last day of work was my last day of qualifying days.
Wow.
And then I quit, had already trained my replacement for a month and a half. It was like seamless, zipped out to New Mexico, started as an apprentice editor.
So you're an apprentice on this film. What happens after that?
When I was working at Method Studios, I was the visual effects editor, as I said, on San Andreas. And so I was vendor side, and I had part of that job is to interface constantly with the in-house VFX editors in the cutting room, because I'm checking their shots and, seeing how it all evolves. I formed a really close relationship with the assistant VFX editor on that film, Justin Yates. And he knew my hopes and dreams and really, was an advocate for, you got to be in a cutting room, like we got to get you over. So even though we had never met in person, he hired me as the second assistant on a film called Stronger.
Okay.
And
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal, exactly. So that we did together. And then he ended up having to leave for personal reasons in another film, and then another first came on. And because it was a small film for Lionsgate, we also didn't have a visual effects editor, but because
you could do it all yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What was the first film you firsted on?
So the first film that I was the first on was It Chapter 2.
Oh, it was It Chapter
Yes.
2.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, so from that second position, were you then another second and then you got to first? How did that process work from going to second to first for you?
Yeah. So it all goes back to Justin Yates again. Mm-hmm. So Justin interviewed for a film called Rampage with The Rock.
It all comes back to Rampage.
Come back.
Okay,
but I always joke that everything comes back to Rampage because you just run into everybody has worked on this movie in one way or another in this like bizarre, it's like all roads lead back to Rampage.
Roads. So I was the second on Stronger. Justin interviewed for Rampage. Kenny Krause, who ended up being the first, he had been debating some opportunities. And so Jim was interviewing other firsts in case Kenny was not available. And in the process of Justin's interview, mentioned me. And so then I got called in for the second job on that. They were filming in Atlanta and wanted a second assistant who was familiar with Atlanta. Kenny decided to take that job, and then he reached out to me because Justin had put in a good word about me and our experience working together on 2 films prior, and asked if I wanted to come on as the second assistant, which for me, I had been so hungry to be back on a high budget VFX heavy film ever since my experience on Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I'd been kind of like, I don't know when it's going to happen. Like, I think because I have these VFX editing experiences, that'll be the route in, even though I desperately want to be in editorial proper. So Rampage was this like blessing for me. I thought it would take me much longer to get back onto those kinds of films. And then I formed an amazing relationship with Jim, an amazing relationship with Kenny. And I really saw myself sticking with them. The collaboration of working with people you respect, people who are good to work with, is really just special. And I don't take that for granted. But the post-producer on Rampage, he and I had formed a really good relationship, and he had been the post-producer on It Chapter 1, and kind of, I guess, he played matchmaker with me and Jason Ballantyne. There was an opening on It Chapter 2 for first assistant, and Darren Reed, my post-producer on Rampage, came to me and said that he thought that I would be a really good match with Jason as the first on Chapter 2. And at that point, I didn't think I was ready to first. And it really took somebody that I respected saying that they believed in me and felt that I was ready for me to even contemplate making that career shift.
Interesting.
Because I thought, I'm sticking it with
How old
Jim
are
and
you?
Kenny.
Right.
Oh, gosh, 26?
26.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, let me actually count that. It was 20.
Rampage came out in 2018, so you probably worked on it in 2017, right?
Yes. I forget how old I am sometimes, so it's all blurry.
Same with Haruka.
How old are you now? Minus
I'm
6.
33.
Minus 6.
That's
27.
math. I'm in art.
27.
27, yeah.
27.
That's math. I'm in art.
I'm in art.
I'm in art. So you were about 26 when you were
about 26,
working on
yeah.
Rampage, and you get this call about potentially being a first on It Chapter 2.
Yeah, it was. Well, Darren came to my office and we had a whole conversation about
Yeah.
it. And he connected me with Jason, and I drove down to Santa Monica, had a really lovely conversation with him. It was not this is definitely going to happen. I did 2 interviews with him.
You've never firsted before. It Chapter 2 is a huge movie. Yeah. Are you in that moment, knowing that you're probably interviewing up against people who have, by this point, firsted on maybe Marvel features or other big stuff? How are you setting yourself apart? How are you saying, I know I'm not experienced enough technically, on my resume to do this, but trust me that I'm going to do a good job on this?
That's a great question. I think...
Because that's what, that's like $150 million movie,
it was a
right?
Huge
That's a huge movie.
I think oh God.
Maybe you didn't.
Did I do that? I don't.
Maybe you did. Maybe it was just you being you.
Yeah, I don't
And that's
think
what
I
made
went
you
in
stand out.
trying to prove myself necessarily. I always have this philosophy for every interview that you go into that the person interviewing you wants you to be the one. They're not rooting against you. They want you to come in and prove them right. That they want it. We're not. When I'm interviewing, I'm just me. If I've gone through the effort of bringing you in, it's not a stack deck. I pulled your resume because I saw something. So we're just going to have a conversation so that I can confirm the fact that I'm already rooting for you. And so I go into interviews when I'm in the chair being interviewed. I just want it to be easy for them too. I don't look at it like I have to prove something that I don't believe I'm there yet. I'm here for a reason. Let's just talk. So I was asking Jason about, he had assisted on the Crocodile Hunter movie, which I was a big fan of. So I was asking him those questions, we were just chatting. But I had also had in my, the films that I had worked on, I had a lot of responsibility, even for credits that, I had a lot of responsibility as an apprentice. I had a lot of responsibility as a second. I had done projects where I was the only assistant. I was computer lab assistant at Chapman in the film school. So I knew technical stuff. I was familiar with Nexus failures. So I was young, but I also...
You had the chops.
I didn't think that I was having to prove myself more so than any other person in the chair.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point too, you're just talking about your experience.
Yeah.
Right. And just what you know, and just as you said, just having a conversation of I did this, and, you worked on this film and I really liked it. And, those are the things that I think people kind of look for, because as we've mentioned in multiple episodes, it's all you want to do is really just work with people that you get along with.
100%.
And that you enjoy talking with, and you can get a drink with, and you can hang out with.
I think it's all of those. And then I, think one step further, this job is about how you handle stress.
Yeah.
If you go into the interview stressed, then you can't handle stress well. Like there are so many things about this job that you can't anticipate. So I can't anticipate the things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm somebody that's going to roll with the punches and I'm going to react to it. And there are so many things that are going to happen and it's the first time you've ever been faced with it. Then you figure it out. You have your phone of friends. You have your network to rely on. You know how to Google everything. You know how to read Creative Cow.
Now, how did you get the FOS? You met with Jason. And then he liked you and then said, you start? Or how did that go?
Well, so it was twofold. Rampage was a New Line film, and Chapter 2 was a New Line film. Jason and I had a really good series of interviews and had a really good connection.
Same post
supervisor and same post executive. And she really liked me. This is Jody Levin. I would not have gotten that job if somebody up the chain didn't think my resume was qualified. Because she knew me and wanted to advocate for me, there were no obstacles beyond Jason taking a liking to me. And also Darren, our post producer, has been just a wonderful advocate for me in multiple stages of my career. And he told Jody that he would train me on every aspect that I might not know about yet. So the things that might have been obstacles, I had people believing and vouching for me and sticking their neck out for me.
And primarily because you're doing a good job on Rampage.
Right.
I mean, that's where this is all coming from. It's coming from the fact that you're doing a good job on Rampage. You're showing up to these people in a way that they feel like they can trust you.
Completely.
So I want to get into you being now your first assistant career.
The meat and potatoes of what we wanted to talk about.
Finally, after how long?
I feel like when Lian and I talked about doing this podcast, you came up so often because I feel like one of my favorite conversations that I get into with you about is this idea that, there's this famous adage that everybody gets promotion until they get to the job they can't do. It's something like that, where it's like the natural progression of a career is to move to a position that you cannot do. And then you're stuck there at the position you cannot do. And I think for assistant editors, it's this interesting thing that going in film school and learning about this stuff, you learn about storytelling, and then you learn about technicals, and then you learn about turnovers, and you learn about all these aspects of it. And then all of a sudden you're put into this position at first where you are a leader. They're managing the day-to-days of the cutting room. They're managing sometimes what snacks are in the crafty. They're managing down to the intricate details, all the way to the high-level details. And then you're managing people's schedule. You're managing their time. You're managing their vacations, when they can go home, when, if you're working a Saturday or Sunday, who's coming in, who's not coming in. All of these things that we don't talk about it that often. As assistant editors, we talk about turnovers and storytelling and all these stuff, but we don't often talk about how to deal with somebody who gets sick and you've got a vacancy in your cutting room. So I'm really curious from a top-down perspective. I feel like when I talk to you about it, you're one of the few people I talk to that seems to have also picked up on this kind of weird thing that we don't really talk about, that everybody eventually has to go do. Just a bit your philosophy, the nitty-gritty details of what you think about that job.
I feel like my philosophy is that we should be covering for each other at all times, and that the job should be set up so that everyone knows how to do every phase of it. And yes, we fall into these routines of this person primarily does these kinds of turnovers. This person primarily does the sound cleanup and whatnot. And this person primarily does the picks outputs, but that we're all doing it in such a way that any person can open a bin and see how it was done, and that it's not one person doing it one way and then another person doing it another way and not being able to slice and dice it.
So a transparent workflow.
Workflow. I love starting every email with editorial provides something, so that nothing is I'm sending. We as a collective are sending, and that the email is uniform no matter who's sending it, so that that it shouldn't matter to the receiving person who prepped it, that it comes the same way.
And that you're all taking maybe accountability for it as well. If something's messed up, then it's you as a team that messed up.
Completely. Well, and it's also, if something's messed up, it's my responsibility. It's not the second's responsibility. I delegated it, but I didn't carve out the time to check it. That is still on me. It isn't anyone's fault except for mine if something goes wrong. So that's critical, and obviously I'm not micromanaging to the point of I'm not checking everyone's work, but I'm creating scenarios where like I wouldn't have our apprentice send something out without providing them the safeguard of somebody else checking their work, not out of a lack of trust, but out of a like wanting them to not feel the burden of stress for if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
But then I'm trusting the second that the checks are happening, because if something goes wrong, that's my responsibility. And then it doesn't go downhill from there. And then I'll have a conversation if something goes wrong. But even if that conversation is happening, the error as far as it is, interpreted from above is my fault. And I think that that's really important.
So when you do get these tasks, I mean, as a second assistant on the Batman, it was always, people always kind of would ask me like, oh, what does a second do as opposed to a first assistant? And I always described it as, well, I kind of just take the overflow of what the first assistant can't, like really, if they have so much on the plate. But I want to hear from you, like if you were to delegate tasks, right, to a PA, apprentice, whatever, do you give your second, I'm just going to say second because they're the closest to you in hierarchy. Do you give your second the tasks that you just don't have time to do? Or do you have specific tasks in mind? Like I'm always going to give outputs to them, or I'm always going to give turnovers to them. Or do you do like a mix, like just anything that comes your way that you think that they can handle, you give to them? Is there
So my philosophy is my job as the first assistant is the macro and the second assistants are the micro.
okay?
I always
That's a great-
delegate the micro.
Okay.
And there are days as a first where I don't touch the avid because my job is to make sure that the ship comes into harbor, and the micro's not, it's important that the micro happens. That is not my job to do.
So what would you describe
I want to
as
know what micro
the difference
is.
between a macro and a micro?
So I think I'm going to use a screening as an example.
Okay, sure.
So my job, let's say on the Flash, we're gearing towards a screening. My job is the screening's happening on Thursday. I always back time very to the hour what needs to happen in prep for a screening. So we would typically screen on a Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Working backwards, at 10 a.m., we're checking the DCP at that theater. Working backwards the day prior, that Wednesday is a buffer day. We're also QCing the DCP. So if any failures happen, we have a day to respond. So that means Tuesday night, still going backwards, Tuesday night, we're making that DCP. Tuesday afternoon and morning, we are QCing the reels and doing final mix notes. But sync's locked. Okay, so that means Monday, our final checks for critical VFX that affect sync to drop in with explicit notes to the sound team that these must be fixed in these capacities. Making sure that I'm only thinking through the absolute amount that the sound team can handle for those days. Then going backwards from Monday, we're not working the weekend, ideally.
Right.
Then Friday morning, we can do VFX drop-ins that affect sync. I have time. Thursday, we are starting on the mix stage. All of that I'm paying attention to. I'm checking the mix reels on the stage. I'm making sure all of those happen. I'm not touching turnovers because I'm trusting that my team are delivering it. So what I would do every single day is check the VFX shots and go, this is good, this is not good, to go in. To the seconds, I would say, provide a list with time code EDL to the sound team of these shots. But I'm approving the shots. Now you guys can deliver it.
You're not cracking open list tool.
I'm not cracking open list tool. I'm checking the macro and then going to the sound team and saying, I'm so sorry, I'm dropping in 25 shots in this fight sequence. There are going to be gunshots that affect, or like flares or whatnot that affect you. We're going to send a very specific list of where that sync point is. And then the team is sending those lists, but I'm not doing that.
And we're operating, this is like a preview that you're doing to get a score. Like
Correct.
You're in studio.
This is like
Yes.
important.
So let me throw a curveball in. Monday,
Mm-hmm.
executive wants to take out a scene. You've got to make the change. As a first, like that's a situation that happens. How do you encounter something like that?
That typically does not happen.
Oh, really?
No, because we're very clear about when the
deadlines
changes need to happen with big editorial swings.
So you're establishing a precedent
Yeah.
early on, maybe.
Yeah.
That like maybe that first Friends and Family, that first preview, they want this major change. And you go,
That
"You're
can
past the
happen until
deadline."
Thursday, but we turned over the reels on Thursday.
So you're giving an assertive,
yeah.
this answer, this
Yeah.
can't happen. I'm
No,
sorry,
it can't
we're
happen.
doing this.
I mean, there are times where we've prepped a reel and and the director goes, oh shoot, I like really forgot to give this note, and like this is critical. And I'll say, like, it's 9 p.m. If you are telling me this is a mandatory thing and it must happen, we will begin it now. This is the amount of time. We'll be here till 2 a.m. I just want to make sure
You're
you are.
explaining the
I'm
consequences
explaining
of the
the
actions.
Ask. Yes. And if the ask is mandatory, we will do that ask.
Okay.
But I want to make sure that we're all clear on the ask and the human hours and the labor behind that ask, because I won't give you any change up until Thursday, but we've turned over those reels. You could do some nips and tuck, but the sound team can only do so much. Mountains can only move so much. So you can make a change if you're telling me this is critical, make or break, like everything falls apart if this doesn't happen. Or I hear you, but I have to proceed.
I have gotten into situations when I'm a first or editing where the ask from the director or from someone who's above you, they might not understand how long something might take.
Most don't.
Most don't. So what I usually do, which is what Esther essentially said, but I feel like that I'll always preface it with, like, if I start doing it and I'm like, oh, this is actually going to take like days to do, I will always go to them and be like, hey, just so you know, this task that you want me to do is going to take a while. I can do it. I don't have a problem with doing it, but just so you're aware, you're not going to get it tomorrow. Like, it might take a week or two to get it. So not even just in like a screening scenario, but in general, just kind of, I find that being open about the process, and you don't have to go into like nitty gritty details of it, but just saying like, hey, this, you know, I know you want this tomorrow. If I'm going to be real with you, it's not going to happen tomorrow. I mean, I can do it and it might be half done. And if you're okay with that, then cool, I'll proceed.
I appreciate you saying that, because I think there's this pressure in a cutting room that if a demand comes in that we like, and you know, I see it sometimes when a demand comes in and then we're like, okay, we'll get it done. And then just the logistics butt up against reality and it goes, this can't get done. And you got to kind of go back to your director or your editor with your tail between your legs and be like, I'm sorry, this just like, you know, X, Y, and Z, whatever. So I think for what I'm hearing from you is you saying like, part of that responsibility of being a good first is managing your schedule, knowing how long things take and keeping that all organized enough that when a request comes in, you can clearly enunciate to the asker that that thing is or is not impossible, or these are the consequences of those actions.
100%.
And doing that early enough in the process of editing so that it's not a surprise when you're on preview number 3, when an ask comes down and you say it can't get done, that they're not shocked that you've been able to do it before. And now this is the first time you're saying no.
You're so spot on. And it's also, you know, talking about like firsting philosophies, it's really important for me at the start of a job to establish precedence.
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, well, so like this is a small thing, but actually critical. I start every job by doing team walks to coffee. I find that super crucial to start at the beginning of a job. Not necessarily day one, but establishing that seeing the sun is not an obscure request.
Yeah.
You don't have to drink coffee, but let's go outside. That a 15-minute walk is not going to destroy a cutting room. That you can let people know that you're stepping out and that is an appropriate, natural thing that we're allowed to do.
Yep.
There was a job that I was on as a second assistant, and this is all like how my philosophy evolves and like picking up things that, you know, work or don't work.
No, yeah, and I think you're not coming up with these philosophies out of a vacuum.
Right.
You're in an experience, you know, even on great movies, there's times where you're not having a good time, and I appreciate that you're learning from that. You're saying to yourself, I'm in this position right now. I don't appreciate how this is happening. When I'm in a position to change stuff, this is how I would do it differently.
Completely. And I say this to everyone that I work with too, of like, you're always going to be taking philosophies from how I do things. I hope you do it better than me. I want you to evolve.
Like,
there are times where I make mistakes all the time. And there are times where I get frustrated that I, you know, don't live by the example I want to hold myself to. It just is the natural state of we are human. So with coffees, I was on a job as a second assistant, and very late in the process, I asked if I could walk to Starbucks. And I sped walked to Starbucks, sped walked back. There was no dawdling or anything. And the first said, I always wonder where you go on your long walks. But I just sped walked to Starbucks and sped, like there was no...
You're being shamed for taking any personal time to like do anything.
And I understand that they were very attached to their desk and that was the culture of the job. And it's true, like we didn't often walk away. And that was a me speed walking and walking back. And that sat with me for a long time, not out of a like, how dare they? Like, I understand where they were coming from, but it also made me go, start it early. And start it early as a team so that nobody feels a shame in asking for it. Because if I can establish it of like, no, I'm super comfortable going to Jason saying, hey, Jason, we're all going to walk to Starbucks. Do you want to come with? No. Do you want me to bring you anything? No. Cool. We'll be back in 15. I'll pop back in when we're back inside. Yeah. Like that's so important. And then the editor's not feeling like, why is nobody answering my Slack? Where are they? Like,
right.
He knows we've communicated and there's no shame in it because that should be totally fine.
Right.
I think this feeds into a broader question I want to ask about managing people's schedule in general. And, you're in this position, so, you have the macro managing of the movie, you've got your micromanaging of the movie, but now you also have people. You have people with lives and they have girlfriends and husbands and children and all kinds of situations and doctor's appointments and all these things. And I feel like sometimes there's this pressure to, like you're saying, be in the cutting room 24/7 as often as you can. Don't take any breaks. And it's like, I struggle with that sometimes because I see really high budget, really complicated, really successful films manage very normal cutting rooms and very normal lives. And then I see movies that should be really normal, simple, straightforward things. I hear horror stories. And so, I think about that a lot of like, you've got all these people now that you have to manage. We still have a job to do. It's a complicated job. It requires a lot of hours. But how do you manage the broad strokes of people's schedules? You have to work on a weekend. How do you decide who's coming in on Saturday, who's coming in on Sunday, who's not coming in at all? How do you tell people to communicate their doctor's appointments, the fact that they're feeling burned out, any of those things?
Yeah. I make it a point to always, if overtime is required, like if the editor's working late, on The Flash, for example, on The Flash, there was myself. I started out as the first assistant on that. Then we had Ben Stringfellow, we had Janie Gaddy, and then we had Haruka, our apprentice. And Cam. Yay. Hey.
Hi, podcast people.
Cam is wonderfully doing our sound mixing for this episode.
So just with that core team, Haruka, as the apprentice, not allowed to be in the cutting room without supervision because he's there to learn and shadow. So he has to be in the cutting room when an assistant's there. And we were very much not working him overtime unless there was an educational component to that ask. So he would work overtime when prepping for a screening because those would be late nights and that was important for his education. But he was not working overtime on a standard night that our director and our editor are working late. On those nights,
like a Tuesday night,
regular Tuesday night, Jason at 5:00, are you planning on working late tonight?
You're saying this to him.
I'm asking this.
Okay.
And if he says yes, I have a conversation with Ben and Janie and we would do a rotation. So it would basically be, we would not try and have the same person be late night stacked back to back. And also, do you have a dinner with your wife tonight? Do you have a dinner with your husband? Like, you don't want to work tonight. Oh, you do want the overtime? Great. Like, hey, Jason, Jeannie's going to be working overtime with you tonight. So if you need anything,
but you're not keeping both assistants.
Not keeping both assistants. No, it's after hours. You get one person unless you're making an ask for multiple people. And that's when we talk about the micro versus the macro. I would stay a lot of those nights. I'm part of that swing rotation.
Yeah. I mean, it's the first, you're going out with the ship. You're the
But
first
I would
mate,
not
right?
do every late night.
Sure.
If the director's there, I'm doing that shift.
Yep.
But when the director's there, I'm sitting in with Jason because I had that relationship with him and he was giving me access to, be part of those dialogues with our director. But if it's an average night where Jason's working by himself in his room and he just needs somebody for the standard degree of support, we would rotate that. And the rotation would always be a dialogue about who wanted it, who was available, and everyone was a team player. There was never like that one person who was like, no. Like we were all in it for each other, recognizing that system meant that all of us could have a work-life balance. So yeah, it went really, really smoothly.
And is this is the same philosophy you're applying to weekend work, or is everyone coming in on a weekend?
No. You got one person.
One person.
Yeah. Unless it's a critical
And you're establishing
part of
that,
the process.
I imagine you're establishing that precedent early on. You're saying, the first time you've got to work a weekend, it says, okay, you get one person.
You get one person.
And that just becomes a new rule for the cutting room.
Well, you get more than one person because if you're coming in, that means a PA's coming in. So, there's like all sorts of trade-offs that happen.
Yeah.
So there's lots of people coming in. AP, our wonderful Cam.
Yeah. So I do want to ask, because we mentioned it earlier then with all these people and moving parts, how do you personally handle the stress of an editing room when you've got multiple things coming at you? It also kind of goes along with this question of managing people's schedules to make sure that people aren't overworked.
Yeah, managing your own stress and other people's.
And other people's stress. And we talk a little bit about burnout on this episode, on the podcast.
Yeah.
We've asked people like if they've hit burnout, what they do to kind of get out of it. So I was wondering what your thoughts on all that were.
Yeah, I think having a team you can trust is so critical. I think the hiring process is one of the most important things you can nail as a first assistant.
So you can have at 2 a.m.
Yeah, completely. Like it's we were talking, it's easy to be really good at 2 p.m., but it is harder to be really good at 2 a.m. And the 2 a.m.s, I pray, are few and far between, but we are allies in this process, and every single person is part of the success or failure of that ship. So for me, like, I had an amazing relationship with Ben Stringfellow. He was our PA on Rampage, and I really saw in Ben this kinship in managerial styles. And so even though he had never been a first, I saw, I think you would do it the same way that I do it, or better than me. And so what I really saw for me and Ben was, I've done 4 movies now as first assistant, and I'm really hoping that there's a cutting opportunity around the corner. I think you would do it similar to me, and I think you would.
You said, you want to replace yourself with someone you think is better than you.
100%. But I don't want you to be green. I can come work with me. I'll train you. You'll get to know my editor.
I'll get you ready for this.
Yeah. But what it also did for me is when, talking about stressful moments, I would go to Ben, I'd sit in Ben's room, I would talk through the stressful situations, and it was mutually serving because I've got stress, I need to share it, I need to problem solve it, but it's training Ben for what to do in the stressful situation. So we're solving it together. So what do I do when there's a stressful situation? I rely on my team, and it makes us better for it. And I feel like we would have conversations, when appropriate, with our apprentice editor, with our PA, where it's, here's the problem to solve. Here's how I'm planning on solving it. But if you guys see another way, let's talk about it. Is there a better way to solve this? So
I think this is really great. I mean, I love this, and I wish I was on any project with you, Esther. I'm like, man, your cutting room sounds like a dream cutting room. I would love to have been part of all of that. But
there are hard times too. There are times, and again, there are times where I've messed up and I've apologized. And I hope that those
and I think it just goes back to this idea that, like, a lot of people, when they go to a first, they're just biding their time to be an editor, and they're not really appreciating the gravity of their situation. And it's not that people are bad first because they want to be bad first, but they want to be editors. And the first is just that last final stepping stone to getting there. So if I just rush through this and I just work really hard, then it'll get there. And they're not really appreciating the fact that they're really where they are and the gravity of what they have to do.
But the point that I would trying to get at too is that I feel like in this industry, and I don't know if I was inadvertently, subconsciously taught this, but you have this notion of, like, if you're in the job and you're really stressed, you have to figure it out on your own.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to let anybody know that you're stressed. But so I love this idea, and I'm not saying, it could just be the way cutting rooms are nowadays, and like the old cutting room, quote unquote, versus the new cutting room, quote unquote. But there's like that notion where it's like, okay, you're in a cutting room. If you're really stressed, you have to you have to make sure it doesn't play off. You have to, like, everybody needs to know that you've got it handled. Otherwise, they think that you can't handle this. You're weak, whatever. So I really love and would hope that editing rooms do what you do, where it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you get stressed, everybody gets stressed. It's not something you can avoid. What you need to do is lean on each other and express the stress. Maybe you're stressed out at a problem that you can't solve, and maybe your second has a better way to do it. And you need to be able to communicate that and talk through it with everybody, as opposed to just like, you're the first, you have to figure it out. You can't like let anybody know that you're having troubles. Like,
or I see it a lot with PAs who the first time they work that 12-hour day, it's an adjustment. I feel like, I mean, it took me probably a year and a half to like be able to work a 12-hour day and feel normal at the end of it. But the first time you do it on a consistent level, it, for lack of a better term, fucks with you. It fucks with your head. It messes with like your sense of time. Like, it can really grind people. And I see it weigh on a lot of PAs. And so, you know, after I was done PAing, I do try to tell PAs I work with, I'm like, it's normal to feel like shit. Yeah. It's normal. Like, and like, if you're not feeling good, or if an executive is yelling at you or somebody, come tell me. Come tell me. You know, there's only so much that I can do, but I just want those PAs generally to know, like, I've been there, I've felt like this, I have felt weak, and I have felt useless, and I have felt stressed, and like I support you. Yeah. Like I get, and it's not, I feel like it's also not in a way of bad talking whoever made you feel bad. It's more of the way of just like, man, this is just hard for me right now. Sometimes it's just adjusting to the culture. Yeah, talk to someone who's been there and, you know, hear it from their side. Like, okay, I'm not alone in this. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I also think it's so important, like, even though this isn't quite true, there is this perception that there's no HR in film. Yeah. There is. There usually, you know, so like, if something's seriously wrong, there are places to contact and departments that are available to you. But my job as a first was also to be the person that anyone on the team could come to if there was an issue that really needed to be sorted out. Yeah. And so I've had conversations with people of like, I know it can be hard to speak up and say, hey, that really bothered me. But if something happens and it bothered you, come to me and I will say, that this thing bothered me, so that it's not on the person who might feel like they don't have the voice in the cutting room to say it. I don't ever want somebody to feel ostracized or that there's a culture that doesn't include them in any way.
I do want to ask you the difference between ups and downs of working with the same team versus hopping around to multiple teams.
It's all ups.
I have worked with, I'm in the position of hopping around to multiple teams. I've sort of found like Jesse, and hopefully that will continue. But I know that you have mainly worked with essentially the same people, right? So do you find, not so much on, like, obviously your team is very great, and I love your team from an outside perspective.
Yeah, I'm friends with your whole team.
I'm friends with your whole team.
You've worked with my old team too.
I knew Jason way back in like 2017. But do you see, in just kind of looking at it from an outside perspective looking in, do you see a downside to working with the same team all the time? Or do you think, as you just said, it's all upsides?
Well, I mean, every coin has two sides.
Of course.
Every side has two coins. Yes. As the saying famously goes.
I want to hear both of the sides in your words.
I think of careers as two ladders going upward. And that there's the path of jumping rungs from ladder to ladder versus climbing one ladder linearly.
Okay. Yeah.
And there are advantages to rung jumping between those two ladders of your career. And there are parts of my career where I have rung jumped, like leaving Method Studios. That was a rung jump. I saw the advantage of jumping to this, and then from there I jumped to the next job as second assistant, or apprentice, and then jumped to second assistant, and then Rampage came along. That's also another rung jump because that's a new team. And then I was saying, I looked at Rampage as, all right, you rung jumped. climb up the ladder,
yeah.
stick it through. And then an opportunity presented itself to rung jump again to It Chapter 2. But then it was, now climb this ladder. Don't rung jump so often that you lose the trustworthiness of loyalty. That every job that I have worked with the same team, I've improved upon how I was on that previous job. And I also think that there are shorthands that as you get to know somebody, you get to be so much more in sync. And there's a level of collaboration that you start to tap into where like that goal from an assistant editor standpoint of like, I can mind read the editor is so thrilling. And to feel like you know somebody well enough to anticipate their needs, it's really special. And also, so like on the show that I'm on now, this is my first job as editor, I'm working with the same director and producer team that I've worked with for years. And one of our second assistants from The Flash is now my assistant, Janie Casey. She's newly married. But it is amazing. And again, we've talked about moments in my career where I've jumped a rung, but I wasn't nervous because there were people with me who already knew how to work with me. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you make a rung jump, have those safety nets of people who know how you work and they are your lateral ladder.
Mm-hmm. I think we could do an entire episode on jump to editor, but I think it's relevant that we touch on it a bit. I guess if just within reference to maybe, hopefully I'm not say hopefully, but you're done being a first, for lack of a better term. And, you've started this journey as being an editor. What lessons are you taking? Now you're an HOD, right? And you've got to manage problems beyond the regular day-to-day of the cutting room. You have to manage storytelling problems and dealing with a cutting and a director and a studio and all kinds of things. What experiences are you taking now, having looked back on this long career of assistant editorial, are you taking to your job now? And are you trying to do something different? Are you trying to, do something different than maybe other editors have done? Like,
I'm certainly not trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
I am trying to do what Jason did. I'm trying to, I've been studying and learning from him for years. Mm-hmm. He's been kind enough to give me creative opportunities and also was giving me opportunities to do notes and see how a cut evolves through the notes process. So I've been trying to emulate his system.
Do you follow his bin layout? Lian and I were talking about this a while back of like, it's funny how much, like I worked for Hank for so long that like the way I do my bins is exactly, I can't think of any other way to do it than another thing, but Lian does it entirely differently. Do you copy Jason's bin?
I started by copying his bins, but it's interesting how things evolve as you have conversations.
Taste.
My personal taste. So what I did, and this is something I learned from Amelia Allwarden, who I think learned it from Doc, all of my bins. So the director I'm working with right now loves to do series. Like he's very focused in on drilling in to a very specific performance. And for him, like keep the actors in the moment, keep rolling. And so my assistant will mark the actions. But Amelia taught me this thing that now Janie does for me. Every reset is subclipped.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my bin can have 16 subclips of take one. And so it'll be like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, et cetera. And the thing that makes this process so brilliant for me is that now my ghost marker is in the place where it last was. So you can pull, I watch everything. I pull all my favorite pieces into a string out. Janie organizes and put locators and tags it. And so that sequence of my favorite hour of selects gets put into scene order, and each shot is located of those bits. So it's easy to drill into what I'm looking for. But then when I want to audition, like what you're saying of, but I just want to hear each line one after another, I then watch my subclips back as I'm cutting the scene, and my playhead is at the place that it was prior because of the subclip. I'm not hunting and pecking for the moment.
Right, yeah.
So you can really quickly in the bin start auditioning it to that finite level you're looking for without having to prep it that way. So my sequence of selects is what I loved just from watching it. But if you want to audition, it's built in the bin almost in that fashion.
Hank only uses list view. It's all list view and paperwork. But it's also taught me a lot. I mean, that was when I went into film school, I had just had this very top-down editing approach, Walter Murch, blink of an eye kind of thing, right? And then working with Hank, it was just very interesting to watch him work and be like, you watch everything, you take notes on it, and then similar thing, he finds a moment. He finds one, and Hank in particular loves funky moments. He loves when they make a mistake, and he becomes obsessed. He becomes obsessed with taking a clear mistake and then building the scene around the mistake.
Love that.
That's like the way that he starts generally, is he'll find something wrong, that something, oftentimes it's an actor said a line out of character, or they're just talking to the other actor off, and he's like, how can I fit that in? Like, he becomes obsessed with like, screw your script, how do I fit that in? And then he builds everything around that delightful. Weird, funky moment.
That's so
It creates
funny.
these really interesting edits based off of that.
That's amazing. Well, so the film Stronger that I did many years ago, our editor was Dylan Tishner. And he's also from that old school camp of he watches everything and he writes down his notes on paper. But then what was amazing for me is that he would hand me his paper notes, time code in and out. And then I would pull his selects for him, which meant I was watching everything. What is he liking? What is he not liking? And then I was building his selects, which got me very early on studying what's grabbing you. Yeah. And that was a really cool, it was very time consuming, but it was an amazing way to spend that job learning how to look at performance.
Yeah.
For me, editing is discovering the multitude of ways that the puzzle can go together. And the puzzle per footage is not rote. Like, you can't go, well, I'm always going to cut on this line and then cut from this line to this line, and then I'm going to cut from this to this. Like, it's not so cut and dry. I'm watching the take and it grabbed me from here to here. So maybe the edit will be this moment, and then I cut to this.
You're picking the moments that you're building a story.
Right. And and then there's something about like, God, it actually was riveting to just watch this person react to this line.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be on them for that line because I was so transfixed in how they felt it as they were hearing it. But I also have to say, I have had the unique privilege of never once working on a script sync film. I've never watched an editor script sync cut. I don't know what that process is like.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, that isn't like, one day maybe I will study that process and find I love it.
Yeah.
But I have never
had to do it.
So it doesn't call to me yet.
We've talked on the podcast just how everybody has a different way of doing things. So it's interesting to learn how they approach dailies and all of that. See, I would probably, what I know that I should do is to watch everything.
Yes,
Right?
you must watch everything.
Watch everything. Have my assistant, whatever, script sync, so that it's like, okay, I could probably grab the moments, but when it comes like a dialogue scene, figuring out which take that I think is the best line reading, and then after you've cut all those lines together, to go back and then get the flow of the scene.
I'm new. I've only made the jump to editor the past year and a half. And so naturally my inclination is to do what I have seen and been a part of for a long time. But I do find gaps that I have to revise where my initial pass tends to be a little dialogue ping-pongy because my selects are my favorite moment of this line. And so I have to do the revisions of this doesn't have the flow. These are the best moments of each line, but that's not organic and I'm missing the heart of it. And so I know that my process of starting a scene needs to evolve because I haven't quite cracked my formula yet.
It is funny, we're an editing podcast that rarely talks about editing. I'm like, this might be the first editing conversation I've had on this show.
That's delightful.
Yeah.
Of many.
Esther, thank you so much.
Probably.
That is it's definitely going to be the longest episode of our podcast so far, but it's also one of the most informative. I thought that was a really great conversation. Thank you so much for
really appreciate that.
Enumerating all this stuff. Lian's first did, and I first did a tiny bit, but as you sort of start to step into this role, I feel like I start to see the weight of that responsibility over the horizon. And it's one of those things of like, I think what you mean, like you feel ready for it, but you don't really know what it's like until you're in the saddle and making those decisions yourself. And then you just, at that point, it's up to you and you've got to make the calls, and it's about learning from other people and their mistakes and their successes.
Lean on your community, because the thing is, it's just movie making. We're not reinventing the wheel. Somebody has been down that road before, and maybe we can improve upon the way it was done before, but somebody's encountered that problem too.
100%.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sips and Clips, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Sips and Clips is a podcast produced by Lian McFalls and Michael Schusterman. Graphic by Max Schulman. Sound mixing by Cameron Magoo. Sound editing by Zach Griffin. Follow us on Instagram at Sips and Clips Pod. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.